Okay, so in case of an ordinary variable, so if you are taking any ordinary variable such as a, b, or c, that in that case what happens is we can store data of only one type, and you can store only one value. So if you have to store say 20 values, okay, then you have to take 20 such variables. Okay, you have to declare those variables 20 times. Then for every value that you want to enter, you have to again provide 20, 20 scanf statements. Okay, so ordinary variables will take only one value at a time. Okay, but in case of arrays, what is an array? An array represents a collection or a group of elements, not actually elements, homogeneous elements. It represents a group of homogeneous elements, or a list of homogeneous elements. Homogeneous means all the elements belonging to that list will be of the same data type. Okay, so if I am considering 20 elements, and if I have declared them as in, that means all the elements, all those 20 elements will be of integer type. They cannot be of different data type. In addition to that, in case of array, so in case you are using ordinary variable, ordinary variables can occupy scattered memory. They can occupy any random memory location, so they remain scattered. So if here in this example, if I have taken a and b, if you can see, a is stored somewhere here, b is stored somewhere here. If you take another value for c, say c is a third variable for, okay, you have taken c to be 9, then in that case c is stored here. So if you see, these variables are stored in random memory, so wherever they will find space for them, they will just get it there. But in case of array, what happens is they will occupy continuous memory location. So whenever you are saying list always comes together, the values in the list always comes together, they cannot be scattered. So if you are considering a list or a group or a collection of values, then all they must occupy continuous memory location. So that is why array always represents continuous memory location. Okay, all the values in an array are stored in continuous memory location. So that is the basic definition. Okay, these two things that you have to remember is, one is array represents a list of list of homogeneous. Array is a list of homogeneous data type, and all the values in an array are stored in continuous memory locations. That is what you have to remember, these 2 points. So the situation that I gave here is given already. Consider a scenario where you need to find out the average of 100 integer numbers. Okay, suppose you want to find out the average. So leave average, sum of 100 integer numbers. So if you want to find the sum of 100 integer numbers, one way is to what? Give input one by one. You have to input 100 integer numbers one by one. That is one way. Yes, first you have to define, first one way is to define 100 variables. Okay, you can define 100 variables and then of integer data type, and then perform 100 scanf operations to store the entered values in the variables. So that is one way. Of course, that is not feasible enough, because you have to first declare 100 variables, and then you have to give scanf. Okay, you have to give the inputs, you have to write 100 such scanf statements to give the inputs to those variables. That is one way. And the second way is to, what you can do is, you can use the scanf statement only once, provided you place them inside a for statement. Okay, have a single integer array. Okay, one way is to, another way is to, we can use an array and of type integer to store the values. Okay, and then we can place the scanf statement to read that array inside a for statement, that we will understand now. So there's two way. So of course the second way is the most feasible, and that's the best way out, because if we have a solution to this, definitely we are going to use that solution, right? So which solution is better according to you? Obviously the second solution. It is convenient to store same data types in one single variable and later access them using array index. Okay, so see, that is what an array is. Okay, this is how we declare array. Okay, let me just see here once. Okay, just wait. See, let me show it here. Let's first go through this. Huh. An array is defined as the collection of similar type of data items stored at contiguous memory locations. I'll share the note. Okay, first I'll just explain from here. Arrays are the derived data type. Another point that you have to remember is arrays are derived data type. You have done basic data types, yes? Boolean, integer, then what? Character, float, double. So these are all basic data types, right? Arrays are derived data types. Derived data types means they use basic data types. Okay, these are derived from the basic data types. So array you will store a list of values of the basic data types. That is why they are known as derived data types. Okay, so arrays are a derived data type in C programming language which can store the primitive type of data such as int. So if you want to store say 100 integer values, you can store in using an array. If you want to use say store 200 double values, you can store using arrays. Okay, so they make use of the primitive data types or the basic data types to store values. Okay, that is why they are known as derived. Hmm. It also has the capability to store a collection of derived data types such as pointers, structures, etc. The array is the simplest data structure where each data element can be randomly accessed by using its index number. Okay, so that we will understand. C array is beneficial if you have to store similar elements. Similar means same type. For example, I want to store marks of 50 students of your class. In that case, obviously, I'm not going to use any ordinary variable. I'm going to use array. Okay, so if so marks, so marks is of similar, marks will be the similar type of data, right? So if I'm to store marks of say all the 50 students of first sessional exam, okay, of your class, then in that case obviously I'm going to store array, use array. For example, if we want to store the marks of a student in 6 subjects, okay, or say if I want to store the marks of one student, okay, and that student has got say 6 papers, okay, in that case also to represent each of those, okay, to represent the to store the marks for each of those 6 papers, I'm going to use array. Okay, then we don't need to define different variables for the marks in the different subject. Instead we can directly use array which can store the marks in each subject at the contiguous memory locations like this. So how will this be represented actually? So since I'm talking about arrays, so if, how do we declare it? See, let me just explain the syntax. Okay, so how do we declare an array? Syntax is first is type, okay, then we have the name, and then we have the size. So this is the syntax for array declaration. Okay, so what does this mean? I'm just giving you the example now. Say type. Type will be the type of data. Okay, the data type. So say you want to store marks for 6 subjects. So marks will be obviously of integer type. So say int. Okay, then name. So name means the array name or the variable name. Okay, so here we don't call it any ordinary variable. It's an array variable. So the name. So for let the name of my array be say marks. Okay, let the name of my array be marks because I'm storing the marks of 6 subjects. So let the array name be marks. Okay, and the size means how many elements you want to store. Okay, how many elements you want to store. Okay, I'm storing, just remember, I'm storing the marks of 6 subjects for a particular student. So if I'm storing marks is of integer type. Okay, that is why I have declared the array of to be of type int. Then I have named the array as marks, and then I'm going to store the number of elements here. Size means how many elements that array will contain. Because I'm storing 6 marks for 6 subjects, you can directly give 6 or maybe more, but you cannot give less. Okay, because here you are reserving the space. Remember that you are reserving the space for that, for those elements. So if you give less this lesser size than required, then you won't be able to insert the other values. Okay, so either the size has to be that much as you need, or maybe more but not less. Okay, so here, because I will be storing values for 6 subjects, so let me just give it 6, or you can also give it 10. It depends. Okay, later suppose you want to store say marks for the practical papers also. Okay, suppose they have, the student has got 4 another practical papers. So in that case, 6 plus 4 becomes 10. So you can also give 10, or say you directly give 6 like this. Okay, so this is the meaning. So what does this statement mean? I'm again repeating, this is the syntax, okay, of array declaration. and this is how you declare the array. So how do you declare an array? This is the name of the array. Okay, the array name can be of any, you can, it is up to the user whatever name you want to give. You can also give A, B, C, D. I've given marks to be more specific because I'm entering marks here. I'm entering marks of 6 subjects. I'm storing, because I'm talking about arrays, that means it will obviously represent a list. A list contains elements. So the elements, how many elements will the list contain? So you have to specify the size of that list. So here inside the square bracket, you have to remember one thing: you have to only use square brackets and no other brackets. Okay, so inside the square bracket you have to specify the size of that array and what type of elements is that array representing. So all the marks will be of integer type. That is why I've given int. So once you have given a data type, all the elements in that array will represent that particular data type, will be of that particular data type. Okay, so if you give float here, you can also give float if you wish to. So if you give float here, in that case all the marks, okay, all the marks will be of float type. Okay, so this is how we do array declaration. Okay, just see, have a look at here. This is an ordinary variable declaration, right? This is an ordinary variable declaration where we have only the variable name and the data type. Here this is an array declaration where we have the array name. Okay, just like the variable name, we also have an array name. We have a data type. In addition, what do we have? We have the size of that array to represent the number of elements the user would want to enter. Okay, so this is the difference in case of the declarations. Now, what do you understand by this statement? See, I will be storing 6 elements. Okay, but each of this element is of what type? Float, or let me just keep it simple, int. Okay, each of those marks that I will be entering, each of those 6 marks that I will be entering are of what type? Integer type. And you know that while storage reservation, okay, they depend on how many cells will be reserved for that, but for one particular element it depends on the data type. So if I'm talking about int a, okay, so if this is a, how many bytes will a represent? 4 bytes, because a is of type what? Integer. That you have to remember. Do I am talking about a single cell here? But actually internally, no, this is wrong. So if I say int a means what? A is a variable of type integer. That means a will store integer value. Now what is the maximum size of an integer value? It is, so not maximum, minimum size, it is either 2 or it is 4. For the latest compilers we have 4, right? So 4, so a will represent 4. A, this variable a uh, will be allocated 4 cells. Okay, 4 bytes. Okay, so likewise here we are not taking a single value, but here we are taking 6 different values, 6 values, right? Because we are storing 6 elements here. So here we are talking about 6 values, and each of those 6 values are of what? Integer type. Okay, so for each of those 6 values, 4 bytes will be allocated. Fine. So for the first value, say this is the first value. Okay, just let me just do one thing. So, wait. What are the values? Which are the values we require to find out? So which value? It's like in the above two equations, in these two above equations, what are the maximum values we have to find out? Which one we have to find out? Okay? Who can say? Okay, so what have I done? You see, I have declared an array. Okay, just look at the first line here. Okay, I have declared an array here. Okay, I have declared an array here of the name of that array is marks. Okay, and I have given some numbers. I have given some numbers. Okay, and each of these numbers will represent one element. Okay, So if I want to refer to the first marks, then how am I going to refer it? Marks 0. So this is how I will refer to the first element. If I am to refer to the second element in the list, how am I going to refer it? Marks 1. Okay. The third element will be referred as marks 2. Okay. So this will continue till we finally get the sixth mark, which is mark 5. Okay, so this is how we will be representing the 6 marks. Okay, to be able to access those 6 values in the list. Okay, so along with the array name, we also use indices to represent the 6 elements or to represent the number of elements in that array. Okay, now I'm storing the values one by one. Now the first marks that I want to store. Okay, so obviously you are going to store it using scanf statement. I'm not writing it right now. I'm just directly giving the value here. Say I have the first mark that I will be storing. Okay, for the student obtain say 60 marks for the first subject. So here I will store 60. Okay, say the student scored 70 in the second paper. So this will be 70. Say the student scored 15 the third, okay, 13 the fourth paper, then in the fifth paper he scored 80, and in the sixth paper finally he scored 90. So these are the 6 marks the student has obtained in each of those 6 subjects. Okay, now if I am to refer to the first paper, how am I going to refer? Marks 0. So this is how I will write it, marks 0. If I am to refer to the second subject mark, that will be represented as mark 1, then you have mark 2, then mark 5, and so on. Okay, so this is how, and always remember indexing this we call the numbers that we have given to represent each element for ease of access. This we call as index. Okay, this is known as index. This we call index. In plural it is called indices. Okay, so we use in array, apart from the array name, we also use indices to refer to each element in the list. Okay, because if you say marks, that won't be enough, because which mark are you talking about? Because I have stored a list of elements here. So if I am to refer to a single element, of course I will need another, I will be requiring another means using which I can refer to each element in the list. And how am I going to do that? Using indices, using some numbers starting from 0. So if I am storing n elements, my index will start from 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so this is how we use indexing and the name. Okay, and this is how we store values. Now what I was talking is, as I said already, that here each of my values will be of what data type? Integer data type. That is why I've stored all integer type of data. Yes or no? I've stored all integer type of data. Each of my values will be of int type. Int type means each value will be of 4 bytes. So here actually internally here 60 will be represented using 4 bytes data. 70 will be represented using 4 bytes data. So 4 cells will be allocated for the first element. Next 4 cells will be allocated to the second element. 4 cells will be allocated to the third. 4 cells will be allocated to the fourth. 4 cells to be will be allocated to the fifth, and 4 cells will be allocated to the sixth. So if I ask you what is the size of the array, okay, so if you are asked what is the size of the array, what are you going to say? You have already learned the operator, size of operator. Yes or no? You have already got this size of operator. Yes, so what is this size of marks now? So what is this marks? Marks is the array that I have represented here, right? Marks is this array that I have represented here. Now, if you are asked what is the size of the marks array, what will you write? What will it return? It will return, because we have 6 elements in the array and each element is of what type? Integer. So each element will be assigned 4 bytes. So 6 fours are what? 24. That means 24 bytes will be reserved for these 6 elements. Okay, 24 bytes will be reserved for each of these 6 elements. Here although I'm representing this as a single cell, but actually internally there you have 4 different cells to store 1 byte, 4 bytes. Okay, so here though I'm representing, okay, so this zero will not only represent the first byte, it will represent all the first 4 bytes. this 1 will represent all the next 4 bytes, 2 will represent the next 4 bytes, and so on. So ultimately the size is not 6. You have stored only 6 elements, but what is the size of your array? The total size of your array will be the number of elements that you have stored multiplied by the size of each element. So each element here is of integer type, so that they will be we will be requiring 4 bytes to store each of these elements. Okay, so here we will be requiring 4 bytes, 4 4 4 4 4. So if you add 4 4 4 4 6 times, or if you simply multiply, you get 24. So ultimately this array marks is of 24 bytes. 24 bytes will be allocated, okay, for when this statement will be executed. When immediately 24 marks, 24 bytes will be allocated to this marks array. Is it clear why we use array, what is an array, and how we store values in an array? Is it clear or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm stopping here
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
time being,
Then
so just tell me if you
Yes, ma'am.
have any doubts or so. Any doubts, anyone?
No, ma'am.
Anyone, any doubt? No doubt?
no, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So in the next, next you have lab. So there I will conducting 1 hour class. In the next class, we will discuss further. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You can leave.
Thank you, ma'am.
You all can leave.